everybody, welcome. We are on, I don't even know what episode we're on now, but we're on another episode of Marketeers Clubhouse. I'm Jamie Kalon. Today, I've got my co-host as Mark Walton again, one of my best friends, my business partner in our agency at 54 Blue. Always brings a bunch of great questions and different questions than I have to the table. So welcome, Mark. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
And today we're interviewing a friend of ours. Most of the guests end up being friends of ours. This person has been a great human to us, and we are a huge fan of her. And yes, there are females in marketing. So as our first female guest, welcome Johnnie Mansfield. Johnnie is a few things. She's a super mother to two beautiful kids, one of which is in college now playing football. Johnnie is a super wife to a friend of mine named John. So Johnnie and John are the super couple there. Outwardly, she looks like an amazing cook, as her Instagram shows. She can bake like no one's business. She is a fantastic athlete. She has owned her own marketing company in the trade marketing and event world. She has worked for two powerhouse sporting goods brands, and right now currently sits at a fairly complex logistical role at a high-end appliance company in North America. Johnnie, I'm going to let you sort of talk your way through it, and you can explain your history. And I always love to start with the guests, just sort of like, what was young Johnnie and where did young Johnnie come from? And this is different. In the world of marketing, it's the path is never straight. It's never, I took a really specific, set of courses at university, got a very specific degree that gets me into this. People sort of worm their way in through to this. So Johnnie, welcome. And we appreciate having you on in your time. Can you give us a quick breakdown of where you are today, and most importantly, how you got to where you were? Take us all the way back. Young Johnnie, little Johnnie,
little baby Johnnie. Well, Jamie, first, and Mark, thank you so much for even just having me. I'm extremely humbled that you guys have asked me to join. I've loved listening to the podcast so far. And I'm really excited to see where it would grow. You have the Midas touch, my friend. So where everything you touch does seem to turn to gold. So I'm really excited to see where this goes.
I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So little Johnnie, to take even just a little bit of step back. So my mom is Korean. And when she first came to America, they couldn't pronounce her name. So they nicknamed her Johnnie, as in like Dear John letters. So they nicknamed her Johnnie. So when I was born, my name became Johnnie. But I am from some super humble beginnings, as just growing up in Las Vegas and just the situations that we were in. I have an amazing mom who's been a pretty spectacular role model for me, who is just always hardworking and supported us as a family. I did have bio dad there, but was kind of a deadbeat, but just seeing mom work really hard. And she was a hustler. She just really instilled a really solid work ethic in me. And growing up with that typical Asian mom, you better believe I was a good student. I played the violin. I worked a part-time job, and I just tried to stay out of trouble. And it was all well-rounded off with a really solid group of friends who just really grounded me and just helped me grow as an individual. The second I graduated high school, I left Las Vegas. That was my biggest goal, was just to get out of Las Vegas. And I moved to Colorado to be near a boyfriend at the time.
Of course, yeah.
And of course, right? And my world was absolutely rocked with sports. It was not something that I did when I was in high school. I saw athletes, dated, different athletes, but it was never my thing. Landing in Colorado, I I embraced snowboarding. I embraced tennis, fishing, golfing. You literally named it. I just completely dove headfirst really into that. And that'll become more relevant a little bit further along in the story. But being active was really all of a sudden my lifestyle. I worked at a restaurant at night just so I could go and be a snowboard instructor during the day. So I could snowboard myself, but also get those free mountain passes. So I lived in Colorado for a while and eventually moved back to California, where the addition of golf and snowboarding, I decided to take up surfing. So I was a pretty avid surfer for the longest time while still working in the restaurant industry. The restaurant industry really lets you just have some flexible hours so you can just go do whatever you want.
It's a beautiful thing, that restaurant world. Yeah, you definitely get some free daytime. So
yeah, for sure. And I took advantage of that as much as humanly possible. So fast forward a couple of years, I became pregnant with my son, and then realizing standing all day and working 60 plus hours a week was just not what I wanted to do. So I actually started a small business, a small card making company with my sister-in-law. And so it was just making wedding invitations, birthday announcements, things like that. And so it really started my professional marketing and sales career, because as you both know, having your own business, you are wearing multiple hats, and you do need to dive in, and you really need to understand all aspects of the business. You become everything. My first job in retail was my first job, I was 15 and a half. They were the only company that would hire a 15 and a half year old with a work permit. Was a retail location. It was just a clothing store. And when I was there, it really opened my eyes, in looking back on it now, how I loved trade marketing and doing displays and just really focusing on that. And just so my love for retail marketing and displays and how things execute in store. When I look back on it, I didn't know it then, really set the groundwork for where I was going to go. So fast forward again, back to, surfing, snowboarding, doing all the fun things, but doing my card business. A friend of ours, Fraser.
That's Aaron Fraser. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
My kids went to the same preschool, and his wife actually ordered cards from me so much. And he approached me and said, "Hey, look, I have a role at Oakley. It's a trade marketing role. I need someone there. You're obviously talented. Comes with benefits and insurance."
That's not a bad thing with kids in America, is it?
Not a bad thing. That's actually how I moved off into Oakley, which really started my entire retail marketing, brand marketing, and just marketing career as a whole.
And I'm assuming at that time, that was 2010, me and Mark would have met you within your first week of actually being in the world of trade marketing, which is, I didn't know that's how you're out there. That's a really interesting story. And shout out to Aaron Fraser for finding an unbelievable marketing person off the street. So congrats, Aaron. That's a good one, a really good claim. So you jumped in, and you were kind of aged yourself through, and you learned a bunch of different things. You got to be at a retail environment. You got to own your own company, understand that producing the product all the way through to delivering it to the consumers. Then you ended up in the hot seat at a multi-billion-dollar brand. 2010, Oakley is a very large brand, just either going in or coming out of the Vancouver Olympics, which was one of their biggest years they've ever had. You would have been in an incredible hot seat. At that point, me and Mark were running 54 Blue. I'd already been working for Oakley for a ton of years. When you get into that seat and you start learning the complexity, you would have understood the merchandising component of it. Like you said, you learned that early, as did both me and Mark. We both come from retail environments. And what I loved actually when I was at retailer sort of level was two things. I love the interaction with the consumer, because you're almost always dealing with someone on their best day. They're buying a new bike or a new snowboard, or they're picking out a new outfit for something specific, whatever it may be. But it's like, it's generally a really good time. Of course, you get returns and you get warranty issues and these things, but take those edge cases away. Generally, I loved it because the consumers are always so happy. They're like, new bike day, which was the retail I loved the most. This is the greatest day ever for anybody, is a new bicycle day. Mark, I believe you would agree. Like that, like anybody, doesn't matter what age, you get a new bike. It's fucking awesome.
We're not here for the snooty wine critics or long-haul collectors. Hell, we're not even here for the high rollers. But we do think it's about time wine cellars turned into swoon-worthy works of art. Our experienced designers will bring your dream wine cellar to life, fitting any size space and aesthetic requirements in your home. Our craftsmen carefully hand-build your cellar to give you a wine storage space that really feels like you. Visit themoderncellar.com for more information.
So you had those experiences and you would have understood that. And then you get thrown into the deep end of $1 billion brand. What was the first kick in the pants that opened your eyes up to, this isn't the same as, like, it would be the same, but there, and I already know what the answer is, so I'm just going to let you get there. But what was the first kick in the pants where you went, oh, this is actually this is a real job?
Yeah. So it was my first dive into working for a brand. I worked from the retail side of things, and you seem to think you know what's going on. You seem to think you know brands and what they should be doing and all the behind the scenes, but coming into the brand side of things, and as you guys both know, I was in charge of Luxottica, global Luxottica, and just the executional side of everything that they do. It just really blew my mind to a point where I was running as fast as I could just to jump on this bullet train that was plowing through, really taking over just everything, the eyewear world, and especially in the channel that I was working for, but just the behemoth of what a brand, especially like Oakley, actually does to execute out into the marketplace is just when I just realized you really don't know until you actually work within a brand and from the brand side.
Yeah, I don't even know, like, to the people listening out there, Luxottica is a giant company out of Italy. They bought Oakley back, early in the 2000s, and slowly have been kind of merging systems and stuff, as big companies do with slightly smaller companies. Even though Oakley is a massive company, it's tiny compared to the parent company of Luxottica. And I learned this really quickly back in the day as one of the interesting lessons that I think you would have learned. It's really easy from the retailer's perspective to understand how to service that single door that you're sitting in. It seems so obvious. We just have simple needs. We just need this. And every time you guys send us that, it's wrong. We need this, not that. And then when you do get this, you're like, okay, great. It just seems so simple. What ends up happening when you jump into those roles, and for those who aren't listening, traditionally, and I believe this is one of the largest errors that ever happens in the world of marketing, is that the newest team members that get brought in to the marketing department as a whole, and there's all sorts of different marketing functional groups, Johnnie, as you know, like there's campaign, there's creative, there's sports marketing, there's ambassador marketing, there's fixture creation. All these different things are all kind of, there's promotions. There's all these things that are functional groups that work within the master umbrella of marketing. But all the newest employees, all the greenest employees, the ones that get plucked off the street by Aaron, get thrown into traditionally trade marketing. And it's done not on purpose. It's actually a great place to put you. What ends up happening is when you come in green, you generally have kind of an idea what's going on, but then you have to learn everything. And for those who don't understand it, Johnnie is an expert in print production, in digital advertising, in levering ambassadors, in creating events, in distribution and correct deployment of fixtures, all those different things, Johnnie, that you now kind of take for granted. You have to be a polymath, a jack of all trades, and you have to know all these things intricately. You have to understand color. You have to all these things are so fundamentally important because you're the last person that produces these sales tools that go into market. And so again, it looks really easy when you first jump in, but Johnnie, what would have got you was the complexity and the volume.
Yes.
It's not that it's 10 dealers. It's the problem is there's 20,000 dealers that you have to execute for. And even if a small percentage of that 20,000 want anything even remotely close to custom, that becomes thousands of jobs. And anyone who knows there's only so many days in a year. Now you've got 10 extra jobs on your plate in every given day of a custom thing. And it just becomes super overwhelming. And because you're the person delivering the sales tools, you have to deliver. So it's that new green person coming in, and me and Mark have seen it a million times. They all don't, you made it and you did a really good job. Not everyone makes it out of that trade marketing place. A lot of people wash out because it's so hard. It's so difficult. And you have to be able to learn 1,000 different complex little things, including the logistics of shipping and all these different things. So when you got there and you realized that, was it a real, you're already in the world of prints with your cards and stuff. So I'm assuming you already probably had a pretty good grasp on that. How long did it take you to adapt to the volume issue?
I don't think I had a choice, especially so going back to Luxottica. So what I oversaw was Sunglass Hut, globally, Lens Crafters, Target Optical, et cetera. So many different stores. And to your point, Jamie, just Sunglass Hut alone globally at that time was 4,500 stores across the world. So I don't know. I don't know when the actual time happened of when I actually adapted to it. But I will say what truly helped me just understand and go in, and I've said this to you guys both before, I am a huge fan of surrounding myself with people who are far smarter than me. I want to just sponge off of them and I want to learn, and I just really dive deep. And not to put Mark a little bit on the spot here, but Mark was really my saving grace when I first got there, because I would ask him, I was like, what's 3M mean? Or what's styrene mean? What are these different tools, and what are you talking about? Mark was just ridiculous. I'm sure there were times he wanted to reach through and strangle me, but he was ridiculously patient with me and taught me. He didn't just say, no, just go do this. Here's the reason why you want to do this, and here's the reasons what you're looking for when you're out in the field, and the different things that you did. So it was just an evolution of just no adapting. It's just learning and absorbing and really taking that in. And as you both know very well, there's so many options to trade marketing, so many options to trade marketing. And you just have to really understand it and grasp it, and have amazing people and friends that are standing next to you also teaching you what they know.
That's amazing. When you were in your sort of tenure at Oakley / Luxottica, you're sitting in the Oakley building, so I'm just going to keep calling it Oakley. I like it better than Luxottica anyway. So while you were at Oakley on my hat. While you were there, you dabbled in a bunch of different events. You were creating events as well at the exact same time. And we saw your skill set just bloom really, really, really quickly. And you had the ability of managing really complex workflow issues while maintaining brand standard. Mark and I are firmly entrenched in the world of brand marketing. Brand is always the lead, and then everything else is a derivative off that, specifically in the athletic world. And even where you're sitting today at Fisher Paykel, brand is key. The products are, I've said it before, they're merely a promise of what the brand can deliver to the consumer. That's the consumer is buying a Fisher Paykel. I bought an F&P range because F&P is the best. They're great. And the range is living up to the brand. The product lives up to the brand, not the other way around. And it's been fantastic. Even the service I've gotten on it, we got it and there was a little issue with it right off the bat, which isn't shocking because I live out in the country and delivery is bumpy and all those types of things. But the brand quickly, you guys have so many systems in place to be able to fix that with complicated stuff being shipped to consumers' houses. So, from that brand world in Oakley, which you spent a lot of time, you also met your husband in that building. Ooh, so scandalous. I love it. And Oakley was in a wild transformation at that point. You ended up landing at a lot smaller of a company, but you landed at a company that was hot as hell. So where did you end up after you went from Oakley?
So after I left Oakley, and interestingly enough, I was recruited by this company. I had no plans to leave Oakley. I was going to retire from Oakley. But another good friend of ours, Ben Masick, went over to this small company called Stance. As he was the SVP of sales, and he realized that they needed a true retail marketer. And he and my boss at the time, when I went over, Ryan Kingman, who is one of the co-founders and was the CMO over at Stance, recruited me over. So I went to Stance.
What, coming from a huge machine like Luxottica and Oakley, where you came in sort of, towards the bottom of the totem pole, learned all those skills at Oakley and then go over to more of a, I don't know if you would still call it a startup when you got there. They'd obviously been around a little bit, but, a brand certainly much newer than Oakley. Did you find yourself, did they have anything in place? Were you like, how are these people even surviving? What was the jump between, here to the smaller?
So a conversation that I had with Kingman when I went in and they were never interviews. They were always just come over for lunch and let's chat.
Stance. Yeah. Take holidays whenever you want.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I went over, and I still wasn't sold, I was doing this as a favor to Ben at this time. I was just talking. I was not leaving Oakley, but one of the things I had told Kingman was, I don't know a thing about socks. I know I put them on my feet. I don't know and I was almost trying to convince him I am not the right person for this role. And he had so much faith in me. He heard about me from Ben and just talking to me, and he's just convinced me that all of the relative information that just from a brand side of things translates. Just bring that over here. We will teach you socks. We'll teach you the knit. We'll teach you how many knits are in these socks and the reasons why. He's like, that part's easy. You have the absolute groundwork of what we need over here. And even with that, he said, okay, here's your salary. Can you create your job description? Because we have no idea what a retail marketer should be doing.
That actually says, Mark, to your earlier question, that's a startup right there. And when it's like, here's your salary, why don't you write down on this piece of paper what your job title is? That means startup.
Yes.
So you get over there, and for anyone who doesn't know, Stance is, both of these companies are in Southern California, where Johnnie is located today, and has been for a while, and that's how she was getting her surfing and all that sort of stuff in beautiful Orange County, one of my favorite places on the planet. Stance was a athletically infused hipster sock company that had, back, I'm going to age this back a tiny bit. Let's say, I don't know, 5 years ago, was like really, really, really hot. They, before, they were the first people really doing cool socks. And they had all sorts of neat collabs and all that sort of stuff happening. My question, Johnnie, because I don't actually know Stance's history really good. At that time, were they more of an online company selling like direct to consumer, or were they already sort of starting to go into market and struggling by the time you got there, which is why they hired you? Like, what was the trigger point to say, hey, we actually need a retail specialist to come in?
That's exactly it. So they were.
What did your job description end up being?
Way more than what I had bargained for.
Always.
Right. So that's exactly right, Jamie. So they were an online distributor only for the longest time, and they just started going into retail. They recruited Ben, I want to say maybe 3 months before I went over. And so he becoming SVP of sales, and that included actual retail stores. So we did not create Stance retail stores yet. So this was through high-end or athletic-minded stores like a Foot Locker, Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, et cetera.
I would assume by then you guys had already slowly you were starting to penetrate surf, snow, skate, all that was going yet.
Yeah, all of those locations. So just slowly starting to get into it, and they started to realize the demand of said retailers and what they needed, and the brand marketing team really didn't know how to translate that. And that was something that I was fortunate enough to really learn at Oakley, having that larger brand message. And at Oakley, we had so many different channels. We had to take that brand messaging and tweak it so we could speak to each individual channel where they were at. And so bringing that over, it was just really creating what that channel distribution looked like for retail marketing, and really understanding what a surf shop is looking for versus a skate shop. And they were actually really great at only distributing a very specific style sock. If it was a surf-esque sock, it would only go into surf locations. If it was a skate sock, a skate location, a merino wool would go into Nordstrom or Bloomingdale. So they did a really great job on that distribution. They just didn't know how to help them with their marketing.
So for everyone listening, when Johnnie's talking about channels, she's alluded to it at the end of her sentence there, like snowboard is definitively different than motocross as far as the consumer. Nordstrom's is actually different than, in Canada, the Hudson's Bay. Like these are all actually, the consumers have different economic backgrounds. They're demographically, they're all different people. So it's very easy. And actually, producer Jazz will put up in the final version of this podcast an article that Forbes magazine just reached out to me on, I don't know, about a month ago, on this exact topic of brands that start in the digital world. It's quite easy, because if you want to sell into the motocross world, well, you just create a new page, call it motocross, put in a motocross picture, and put your motocross centric product there. And that's about all you have to do. And you're servicing that customer. Now, really easy at the time for Stance to be able to go motocross, snow, skate. These are just extra pages. The digital team's got a little bit more work to do. But when they start floundering is they go, okay, we're going to, they see their sales, all these digital brands, and you read this in the article, they're up. And like anything, the marketplace starts to dry up. It's harder to get consumers. So the digital brands look into the world and they go, wow, there's this other marketplace, and it's called stores. It's unbelievable. People drive to them and they buy stuff. It's like, we should have our stuff there. It's fantastic. And then, but before you know it, well, you've got to physically deliver printables. You physically have to deliver fixtures. You have to educate the staff. You have to not just ship the product there, but all of these other things. And it becomes logistically super problematic. And that's when you end up with 20,000, 30,000 retail locations. If you are a singular product in a singular channel, you may end up with a couple thousand doors. If you add multiple channels against that, different channels of trade, surf, snow, skate, high-end luxury, blah, 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 2,000, 4,000, on and on and on. Before you know it, you got 20,000 doors all needing slightly different things. And it's no longer easy. It's like mind-boggling hard to resolve the logistical nightmare that comes down the path, which I can't wait to talk to you about your current role, because what you do right now is actually about the hardest thing I can think of, which we'll talk about in a minute, because it's hard to really do what you do over and over. So you're at Stance. It's a startup coming from the digital world in basically fashion, and you help them launch out into that world. It was very successful. I know you did quite well. I saw the numbers. We all saw Stance grow incredibly. Obviously, every company and every dog has its day. They've faltered slightly, and that's just the way it is. Every brand struggles. One, as a note to any brand out there, and I'm talking about Oakley, Asics, and Stance. If you put a basketball court in your head office, you are signing a death warrant to your growth. Just know it. Basketball court at HQ is like, I don't even know it's like a Bermuda Triangle of a vortex that starts slowly sucking your brand in. So please don't do it, because those are three perfect examples of people who had basically full, beautiful NBA style courts, and those courts no longer exist, and the companies are still there, but boy, did they struggle. So, anyways, I digress. I've been waiting for a long time to complain about basketball courts at head office. As much as I love basketball and I enjoy every time I play on those courts, but bad idea. So from here, you sort of jumped around doing a few things. You went back to retail after Stance.
I did.
Which is interesting. And I know, because you and I talked about this, and you had some reservations of going backwards, and it felt like you were going backwards. And I remember saying, pardon my language, fuck it. If you love it, go back and do it, because retail is amazing. And I remember talking to you about it's the person's best day. And like, it's just such a happier space. So you end up back, in retail, and as an avid cook, you end up at a place called Perch. Do you want to explain what Perch is? I know what it is, but probably no one listening will know what it is.
I actually really don't know much about it.
Well, here we go.
So it's actually a Southern California-based high-end luxury premium appliance store. And they are all about the experiential experience when a customer comes in to actually purchase product for their home. So they do gear towards probably the top 1 to 5% in each specific area of where they're at as far as a target consumer and where they're at monetarily. So they go in for high-end consumers. And when that consumer comes in, they are usually spending $50,000 to easily $175,000 on just appliances alone for their high-end kitchen.
From brand development to simple market executions, 54 Blue helps brands of all sizes grow with sustainability in mind. Their full-stack range of services include print, fabrication, design, web, interactive, content marketing, brand consulting, creative strategy, and more. Why not execute at the level of the big guys? Join some of the world's largest brands and lean on 54 Blue for your next go-to-market. Visit 54blue.com for more information.
And if anyone's been to Southern California, that 1%, if you've ever driven along that coastline, those aren't $1 million homes, the kitchens in those homes might barely come in at $1 million. So this is literally the most premium of premium. You know, do yourself a favor, watch 2 episodes of Selling Sunset. Whoever's listening, you'll get an idea really quickly what Johnny's talking about. In fact, there's a new one, Selling OC, I think, which is just about as good. So, Mark, I know you wanted to talk to Johnnie about consumer experience. And this is a perfect spot to start asking questions about consumer experience. Johnnie, trade marketing ends up being an expert at consumer experience. So you went from selling socks to selling the most expensive components within many, many millions of dollar homes. What was the straddle? Like, what you definitely had to bridge some logic there. The consumer is different. The economics are wildly different. As a marketer, what did that feel like?
It was interesting because coming from Oakley, we did consider ourselves a luxury brand. Going to Stance, we did consider ourselves a luxury brand because typically, socks were $16 to $24 for just a single pair. So you are targeting more of a luxury kind of consumer. So you quickly realize that luxury premium is definitely in the eye of the beholder. So, and just what does that actually look like and who are these people? So my first 3 months, it was just a true deep dive into just demographics and what we were doing, so much so that what I realized while I was at Perch, they actually had not had a head of marketing for almost 2 years. They didn't really have anyone that was really handling marketing very specifically. It just kind of fell under somebody else's realm. So what I realized is that they were casting a very wide net and wasting a lot of time, money, and resources and I definitely don't mean this to sound Orange County snotty, but people that would not
good luck. Yeah, people that wouldn't shop there.
Okay, it totally sounds like that.
Yeah.
But just people that would not shop there. So we're really spending money on trying to get these people to come in, which they would not. So I had to really work and shift our mindset from within the company that we're not going after the top 25% of Orange County, LA, San Diego, and the areas that we're in, that we were actually needing to target, again, more of that 1 to 5% of the top Orange County consumer.
Gotcha. With your, to stepping back a little bit, when you were first going to Stance, I think you said Ben said, socks, we can teach you about stocks. Doesn't matter. Sunglasses, stocks, $175,000 kitchens. Like, it didn't really matter in the end, did it? It's you're still kind of doing the exact same thing no matter what you're selling, whether it's, a $200 pair of sunglasses, a $20 pair of socks, or a, $30,000 dishwasher, or whatever.
Absolutely. The marketing basics are the marketing basics. If you have that foundation, it is very easily just transferable to the next item that you are trying to market. You have to understand your target consumer, et cetera. There's a little bit of that learning curve, but just understanding the actual basics of retail marketing, brand marketing, social media marketing, ambassador marketing. If you have that, then you have a great foundation to where you can just almost dive in and just start making the changes that you need to make.
It's interesting because Perch, being a retailer, like the OC, I have to assume is probably 3.5 million. LA County total is 10.
I think they're over 11, but yeah.
11. This is not a small marketplace. This is the ultimate retailer for the tip of that 1%, but that 1% is still a giant number of consumers. And I think it's interesting because it obviously led you to where you are now. So our mutual friend, and in the background, my missing co-host, Pierre Martin, God knows where he is. We pray for his safety. There was rumors that someone spotted him in Montreal, but it may have been a Sasquatch. We're not sure. But Pierre, who is the head of marketing for Fisher Paykel in North America, and you also got a chance to work with him at Oakley because he was running brand at Oakley, and he's a brilliant human. Knew your skill set and landed you in the seat where you are today, and put you in probably the worst position in the building, which, for those out there, if you haven't gone into a high-end kitchen store, in the retail world, in athletics, we call them shop and shops. And that's where, North Face puts like an actual North Face looking store in a department store, or, in a Dick's Sporting Goods, or in a Forzani's up in Canada. And we have these shop and shops. Now, in the world of high-end appliance and luxury appliance, these kitchens that you guys are putting into these retailers are super expensive and ultra premium. Like, they're as nice as a kitchen, maybe not exactly as nice, like not quite as perfect as what would end up in a $20 million house, but not far off that. These are beautiful. And your current role is running those in North America and upkeeping those. And you're in a really logistically challenging position because there's embedded technology to sort of engage and delight the consumer. And anyone who's dealt with rolling out hundreds and hundreds of TVs, which are all remotely getting fed content in the marketplace from someone's desk in Orange County, these are logistically impossible things. I'm assuming you were semi-prepped for the retailer apathy, which is part of the problem with launching these things. And I can say that from my position because I sit in between brand and retailer, and I see sometimes inefficiency at brand, but in a lot of instances, I see apathy at retailers. And some of that looks like, I did this for another company that we helped with a TV rollout, just threw the remotes out. Like, so, yeah, it's just, you go in and there's a branded TV for an athletic company, and it's like, oh, it hasn't worked in months. It's like, well, where's the remote? Like, I think we maybe threw it out. And before you know it, you're trying to match certain types of remotes to certain types of TVs. And then you just have this like crazy matrix of issues. Yeah. Beyond that, I know your role there, and you're buying high-end countertops and high-end cabinetry. And then I don't even know how you do it, but matching the correct appliances at the correct times in those sections, making sure that it's the correct dishwasher that matches the correct fridge, which matches the correct high-end range, that also matches the promotion that exists, all in the correct color that matches the quartz that you've laid on the counter. I think everyone out there, Mark included, Mark, you know these problems because we've chatted about it. This becomes a nightmare, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds of locations. This is a problem. So not only will this prematurely age you, and it hasn't yet, so you may need to get out before it does, because this seems like an absolute flippin' nightmare to me. Where do you even start when you come in on this? Because it's challenging.
I am ridiculously fortunate to have 4 project managers that work for me that are hands down amazing. They are phenomenal at what they do. So what we have actually done, we moved from 2 project managers, and one left, and we were able to hire 3 more. So we've moved up to 3 project managers for North America, 5 project managers for North America. So Canada has their own project manager. And then we were able to divide and conquer the United States within these other 4 project managers. And so a lot of processes are just in place. We have conversations where we work with very specific fabricators and work out pricing for them. It is a long and hard onboarding process for them. To your point, Jamie, we do not just do and no offense to Home Depot, but we do not do just a simple Home Depot install. And this is kind of what your kitchen can look like. These kitchens could almost be taken out of the retail location and put into the store.
Totally.
We are very specific on a 1/8 inch seam reveal around the display, and we go and we measure, and it has to be 1/8 of an inch or we're not paying you. So they go through a very rigorous process. And so we have been fortunate enough to have 4 amazing fabricators that we work with. Same with our countertop companies, just having and sourcing and finding true partners who understand who we are as a luxury premium brand. They come in and they say, oh, we've worked with X brand or this brand who are appliances. And that's
Dude, no, that's not us. I could hear it come from you right now.
Exactly. And so when I meet with them and walk them through a current ISC, their jaws are dropped a little on just how specific we are. So while we don't sell cabinetry, we don't sell cabinets, we sell the entire experience that goes within that. And so when you walk into a shop in shop, we call them in-store experiences. But when you walk into that in-store experience, no one's going to walk in and notice the seams off or the logo's slightly off. No one's going to call that out. But when you walk into a space and the logo's off or the seams are off, there's almost this feeling of it just not being right.
It's not tight.
Yeah, a consumer's not going to point it out and say, oh, this, and this, but it will give that feeling of something's just not right. I don't know if this is the right brand for us. And so that's extremely important for us on how we execute out in these shop-in-shops of what we deliver for them, that they walk in, it feels premium, it feels luxury, and they can easily see this inside of their home.
I actually think that there are more and more people who notice things, those little things like that you mentioned, because that's the kind of stuff I notice all over, the world and in different retail and stuff when something doesn't just seem like it's been built right or it's been built carelessly. So I used to think it was just like a weird niche thing, but I think enough people work in that kind of industry now, like a visual industry, that there are enough people that actually do catch that stuff. So that stuff matters, and that's, all 3 of us, that's what we deal with every day, right? For whatever brand. That's a huge thing. What, just a question on dealing with the contractors. How do you have you run into many issues finding the correct partners for those, or do you have you sorted that out now? Do you have a great set that are all over the place, or did you have to go through a number to find the right ones that listen to exactly what you wanted?
We had to go through quite a few, and some advice I give to my team is we're gnarly. We're very gnarly on our execution and what we're looking for. So I encourage them to give a fabricator 3 tries. Their first one, we know it's not going to be perfect, but let's work together. We tell them, we know, we understand, we have very high standards and very high demands, but we're willing to work with you if you're willing to work within what we're asking you to deliver. And so the second one, we might see 1 or 2 fall off and just say, I'm out. This is not what we're about or what we can do. The ones that make it to the 3rd round really button it up. They completely understand. They have their eye on the prize because, as Jamie mentioned, we have hundreds and hundreds of these that are just rolling out each year, and they're willing to step up and actually do what they need to do.
Does your brand need some help in the trade marketing department? Manage your sales tools with Regulator's easy-to-use features. Whether it's fixtures or displays, POP, custom art, or promo products, you can submit single or bulk orders for all your locations within minutes using a simple, streamlined process. Deliver content, manage your budget, and view the market all from the palm of your hand. Move up to 10 times faster than your competitors and capture all the opportunities that put your brand on top. Visit brandregulator.com for more information.
There's something I need to ask you is, how much mansplaining do you get from the contractors? Because this is a slightly bigger question. But like, if I walk in and I'm dressed kind of like this, and I go to deal with a contractor, I get dealt a certain way. If I walk in and I'm wearing Canadian tuxedo with jeans and a jean jacket and a cowboy hat, they listen to me immediately. And it literally is the difference between like an outfit. Like if I walk in and I look like a weird sort of athletic bike guy, they just think I know nothing. I have to assume that you have faced, specifically in where you are right now, and all the logistics world is owned by men. It's big men moving things. And then there's slightly smaller men sitting behind desks telling the bigger men how to move things. And then there may be a female in front of that is organizing accounting and pushing papers. Logistics is a super manly field. It just naturally has been for a long time, and it's never swapped over. It's getting better, but as of 10 years ago, it was a nightmare. Do you get a ton of mansplaining? Like, I know you and your project managers are primarily, do you have a male project manager, or are they all female?
I have one male project manager.
He's the lone standing male. Do you guys, like, I have to assume you guys get a ton of that. And how do you manage that? Like, how do you, as a strong woman, and Johnnie, I know you're not a ball buster. You don't walk in and push your way through things. You do it with grace and subtlety and skill, but you must face this all the time. You must get no sweetheart a ton.
I'm actually going to take it back 10 years, like what you just mentioned, Jamie. At Oakley, I was tasked by another friend of ours, Ted Lee, to get a showroom built extremely quickly. It was the end of the year. He tasked me. He knew I could project manage this to death, and they counted on me to get this executed before the end of the year. I flew out to Texas, which, if your listeners are not overly familiar with Texas, it is the good old guys that are out there with their cowboy hats, and, guys really rule. I went out there with my training manager at that time to look at this showroom to get it completed. These two guys came in. They asked me very specifically, well, where's your boss? And Jamie, who's the male that is with me, he's like, oh no, she is the boss. and they're like, no, where's the boss? We need to talk to whoever's in charge. And I said, no, I'm the boss. This is what I'm looking for, Y and Z. And they just stopped. They just would not talk to me. It was the first time I ever really experienced anything like this. And I was getting a little heated. And they called their boss, and they're like, you need to look for a Johnnie. That is me. And they were just, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not how things work. And I fired them on the spot.
Yeah, girl.
I fired them and rehired somebody else who came and knocked out the job. So kind of coming back into here, I do have a little bit of the coverage of when it's an email. People assume I'm the guy.
Yeah, it's true.
Automatically assume I'm the guy. Whenever it becomes face-to-face.
I actually did for like our first 3 or 4 emails. And then I remember calling you for something and being like,
pregnant pause.
hey, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And okay, yeah, now it all makes sense. It's coming together. But for sure, our first like 4 or 5 emails. Yeah.
And I am okay with that. Even when they respond back, hey, Mr. Mansfield, or, whatever, I let it slide. It does not matter to me. I have a boy's name. It rolls off my back. But usually the first few times, phone call, meeting in person, it is the pregnant pause as they rack their brain around it and move forward. But what I have learned since that time of Texas and firing those 2 gentlemen is I can't change somebody's mindset of how they're going to come into a situation. All I can be is the expert in the room. Yeah. I need to be able to know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not it kind of looks like it might be a little bit between that one thing that says 1/4 of an inch and maybe an inch. There's none of that with me. It is, it is 3/16. Here's what we need. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And again, just bowing down to you, Mark, just really teaching me materiality and just, as I said before, really surrounding myself with people who are just smarter than me and that can really teach me the things that I need to know. So when I do walk into a room, I know what I'm talking about. I'm not just this little girl, as sometimes people see me, that doesn't know what they're talking about. I try to command the room without being arrogant or rude. I want to really partner with these people. I don't come in as a ball buster in any way, shape, or form, but I really want to partner with these people. And I think they start to respect me when we are discussing things and they are understanding that, okay, she knows what she's talking about. Like, let's move forward with this.
And you do. And I can't believe you know how to read a tape measure. A female that knows how to read a tape measure? What? Ladies, learn how to read a tape measure. If you don't, it's pretty easy. Please. It's not hard. We know you can all drive. Just learn the tape measure thing and we're all perfectly equal then.
I run into more men that can't read a tape measure than women, to be honest. Actually, the amount of back and forth we get with some people about windows and then them showing up and being like, well, that's the wrong size. I'm like, that's
what you told us.
It's the size you gave me.
Interview people. That is part of my interview process. I know a very specific size of something and it's not easy as like 15.5. It's just, please measure that. And if they come back and say, oh, it's about, nope.
Just imagine being a Canadian.
That's a good one.
Being a Canadian lady who has to know both the metric and imperial system. It's so hard. This leads me to a thing. So in the athletic world, primarily athletic, let's say, premium consumer goods world, which we're kind of sitting in that pocket. And I would put this through all the big companies because I've touched most of them. It's a marketing. So to become a salesman, generally you're fairly skilled in certain areas. You have good community connections and there's a certain sort of bit of criteria that get you into the sales world. To be a management at a brand in sales, you're coming out of university with generally pretty specific training in business to be in that world. To be in operations, you've taken logistics courses, all these things. To be in finance, you have all your accounting stuff lined up, and that's generally how you end up in that pocket. Before I even say this, am 100% what I'm going to say. In the marketing world, you can come in as a bro and you can bro your way through and become the CMO of a multi-billion-dollar company. I'd like to know, because I've seen this, and Johnnie, I've seen this happen at multiple companies where a hyper capable female is sitting at a desk in a trade position or in, PR or wherever they get slotted. And for everyone who doesn't know, there are more female PR people than there are males. There are traditionally more, not traditionally, but I would weigh the trade marketing sort of management, that lower level, to be 50-50 male and female. But as you start going up the chain, you start seeing more guys. It's just more bros. It just gets thick with bros and they're high-fiving their way to the top. And I have no education that puts me where I am today. I just learned everything to become a consultant in trade marketing. I'm pretty good at it. It's what me and Mark do. But I've seen that bro culture, specifically 20 years ago, it was brutal. Like I was an athlete for Oakley, and that sort of got me into an interview, and then I just sort of broed my way through into a sales thing, and then I broed my way into marketing, and then I just broed my way all through. I had to be capable, but I didn't have to have the qualifications to do this. It was really slippery and fast and easy for me to do it. as a woman who has worked her way up in marketing to a very solid position, and you've touched lots of great companies, and you work in a logistically heavy area, which is more masculine than feminine, where you are right now, what advice would you give on sort of navigating the internal bro culture at brands? And it's slightly different at F&P, and I know that. So you've worked your way out of that world slightly. But when you, like, Stance was like, that's a pretty bro-y place. Like, it's lots of bros. What advice would you give? Lots of girls are going to look up to you as a role model. I want to be where Johnnie is. And I think that's a great you're an aspirational person. I would love, that's great. What do you tell a 21-year-old Johnnie? And how do you get through that? Because it still exists. Like, when your skills are better, but you don't get it, and someone else gets it because they throw a super solid high five. How do you manage that? How do you defend against that? You laugh, but it's true.
1,000%, Jamie. I felt a little bit of the story of my life at Oakley. And it took me a while to get over it. And I mean that in the best possible way, that I needed to stop trying to be a bro. And you guys both know me. I don't think I'm a typical girly girl. I'm down with the guys. I'll go do just whatever everybody else is doing, and that is fine. But it took me a while to really get over it and realize that it almost is, it is what it is kind of situation. And the only way that I could move past that was to improve myself. Even going back to the mansplaining and, those situations that you're in, to what you just said, Jamie, you just high-fived your way and you had the biggest high five. So you got that role, and, God bless you. Hopefully you succeed, and that's great. But what I'm going to do, while I'm not the biggest high fiver, I am going to learn and I'm going to absorb, and I sit back and I watch and just really I don't play a game, but I just really start to better myself in different situations. Like, so if I saw you, Jamie, go for a role that I really wanted and you guys broed out and that was the best thing. Okay, great. What is Jamie doing? What does he need to learn in this current role? And what do I need to learn so I am in a better position to move into that role when that time comes?
Interesting. And from your position, you even not that you're please don't take this as a negative, but you're not only a female in a world of bros, but you're a mom raising two kids in a single mom at that time, raising two kids in a very expensive environment to live in. You're working in a broed out culture where I might get that job because I go to the strip club with the guy. Like, they're literally, I've heard all of these stories, and it's just like, you roll your eyes, but this was a real, a legitimate real thing.
And not actually all that long ago.
No, I clearly remember this. I remember being I remember being a beneficiary of this. I absolutely was. I'm a 6'4". I throw a high five like a football player. It's unbelievable how well I can bro out. And of course, I stop the line at certain points, but I'm a very outspoken guy. It was easy for me to bro my way through. And I always looked back and I saw, and I could recognize it. And the farther away I got as I became a contractor for the brands, I could recognize it and see it instantly. You can see the gems sitting there quietly absorbing things, getting better, and they're the ones getting the work done. And where's their boss? Well, their boss, and this is in any given brand, and you can't guess at which brand I'm talking about because I've dealt with 50 of them. Their boss is out having a 4-hour lunch with someone, an ex-old employee or an ex-ambassador or an ex-athlete or like the old CMO or whatever. And it's just like, they're just slowly snaking their way to the top. So I find it, and you know, Johnnie, and both me and Mark are married to women way above our station. I am married to King's Court litigator in Canada, and Harper Lee, my beautiful wife, is a fucking tiger shark in business. She is ruthless, and she's a hyper woman. Mark's wife is a super accomplished doctor who is probably at this moment pulling 5 or 6 babies out of 5 or 6 separate women right now simultaneously, and on
very good chance,
and on about 3 hours worth of sleep. Yeah. They're way above us. And I look at you and you're, you know, John did well. So congratulations, John Mansfield. I tell him that every time I talk, I go, how's your beautiful wife doing? I love your wife. And so you've earned your way up into a perfect spot. I think you need to make sure that you're handing down some good knowledge to that 21-year-old female. Because Johnnie, you've in your world, you've done it. You've gotten to a really amazing position, and you've done it your way, and not broed your way to a VP spot, but got yourself and worked yourself into a spot that is so not necessarily a role for a female. Like, you rammed yourself into having to deal with male contractor after male contractor and logistics and having to understand the materiality and how to build all these things. Like, it is such a unique spot where you put yourself, and kudos to you, because your ability to learn is outstanding. And I hope F&P, which is an amazing company, not only they're a client of ours, but I am a customer of theirs for life. The product is unbelievable. If you haven't had a chance, they've got a experience center in New York. They've got one in the building you're sitting in, Johnnie, which is how I got sold on it. I got taken through the experience center and showed all the detail of the equipment that F&P does, and it's phenomenal. Like, it just is. Like, it's a company out of New Zealand, and they're unbelievable. The product is amazing, and we're really proud to be associated with the current company you're at, and you, and obviously the rest of the team is amazing.
I would just want to jump in 1 second.
Yeah.
As we sort of wrap up that part of the conversation there, but the you know, of being a woman working in marketing, have you seen, do you think decent changes since those, you know, those times that we were talking about 10, 15, 20 years ago? Do you see things evolving? Are you in your roles getting a better, just seeing the world evolve?
Absolutely. Especially, I still speak with 2 of the people I hired when I was at Oakley, and I have had just the absolute best time watching their careers grow within marketing, both females, and I want to say they understood the assignment. They really get it. They are growing within their career, and I see just, maybe, I don't know if it's a millennial thing, but they are just a little more brazen and brave, and they know what they want, and they are trying to have a seat at that table. So I have seen it just evolve. I think my only takeaway from that is, you know, you'll have a seat at that table. If you get there, you get there. That is fantastic, but you need to have the education and the knowledge to stay at that table. You might be at that table because you're a female and someone needs to fill a quota right now, but you do need to have the understanding and the knowledge to stay there.
Amazing. That's great. And there's a ton of advice, and you should definitely make sure you should be a mentor to a gaggle of young female marketing people. Go to the closest university, Johnnie, and just go volunteer, because I think you'd make a big difference in their world. Before we go, there's a thing that we do, and I call it the cool confessional. Cool confessional is an interesting thing. Johnnie, I've spent my life cultivating who Jamie Kalon is. And I hope some people think Jamie's cool. They definitely think I have a cool job and that I know lots of cool people and I have access to cool things. But there's a phrase out there that a naked man can't be pickpocketed. So I'm slowly giving away every single secret that I've ever kept in my life. Every single secret of what I was embarrassed to say, too macho to say, just didn't want people to know. So in the Cool Confessional in the past, I've done some basic stuff. I cry every time I sing the Canadian anthem. I've watched every episode of The Voice and I love it. I think it's amazing entertainment. Today in the Cool Confessional, I am very dyslexic. That's my confession. And with that, I am also the single worst speller on the planet. So those two things combined keep Mark Walton, who's sitting right there, and producer Jazz, who's sitting on the back end, so busy because I create content like a monster. And it's tons and tons of content going out. Anything that gets written out of this building, generally the concepts come from me. And it creates a huge bottleneck for my team because every time I type the word the, it's not THE, it's HTE because I'm dyslexic every single time. And Jazz, I don't know how many times she's had to correct that. It's insane. So in the Cool Confessional today, basically my dad, who was the head of a giant English department at the largest high school in Calgary for many, many years. I am his worst student. I cannot spell. My grammar is atrocious. And I am dyslexic. No offense to him, but they couldn't teach me anything. And that's who I am today. So, Marky, do you have anything for the Cool Confessional today?
I'm thinking on that one still. Give me a minute. Johnny, you go first.
Oh, thanks, Mark.
This is like when we're in a restaurant and we're ordering and no one knows what they want, but someone goes first.
Yeah, someone has to go first. So Jamie did. I for us first. Cool Confessional. I think, I don't know if it's cool or not, but you both know that I am Korean. Korean was my first language, but what you both may not know, and I don't share this with people, and to this day I yank them out when people come up to me, but I am extremely hard of hearing and I wear hearing aids in both ears.
Oh, Johnny, I did not know that.
Comes up to me, I'm like, hi.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, great.
Definitely did not know that.
And that is why you, my Canadian friends who have twisted my words a little bit, so you'll hear me say about or something a little crazy, it is just because of speech classes, Korean, and, hearing. So
amazing. Well, that's a great one. And I hope you feel slightly lighter today for that being out in the ether. And
yes.
That's...
I will leave them in from now on.
You can leave them in, and just if anyone asks, you should just watch the Marketeers Clubhouse episode 5. I think it is. Amazing. Marky, if you have something, you can get it out, but you're going to have lots of confessionals to jump into. I've got one for Mark. Would you like me to do your cool confessional?
Let's do it.
Mark cannot stand the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And one day we were rolling around, and this one's the obvious one we got to get out. We're driving around and we're doing something, and the Chili's come on the radio, and I look over, and sure as hell, Mark is singing right along to that song. Knew every word.
Singing is, I was like muttering under my breath. Singing is a stretch.
Johnny.
I did know all the words.
He knew all the words. And so... Oh, he hates it, but Mark is a closeted Chili Peppers fan, apparently. And whether he knows it or believes it or not, that's what we're going to say in the confessional today. So congratulations, Marky. And by the way, if you don't come up with good ones, I got about 10 more for you coming down the pipe. So you better start thinking of some sweet ones. Johnny, it's an absolute pleasure. I have a bunch of different things I'd like to talk to you about. I'd like to have you back as a guest sometime. I'd like to go into the weeds about producing product in China and the intricacies of bringing it into the U.S. I know you got a lot of very good experience with that, so I'd like to chat with you more on a technical level on a different podcast. Now that we we know you and we've got all the background out of the way, I'd like to bring you back at some point in the next year and dive into some of the intricacies of your trade marketing and the challenges you see, timelines, dealing with Chinese New Year, even dealing with just like, how do you ship giant chunks of granite around North America and do all these things? These are all kind of strange complications that you have to deal with as a marketing person, delivering these sales tools. Everyone else, thank you for listening to the Marketeers Clubhouse. We will be back with more episodes, and we will definitely have Johnnie back in a future episode. Thanks, Johnnie. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Johnnie. Great to chat.